What's up, everybody? Lawler here. Yesterday's video, I talked about how we had a bunch of roster things going down due to the fact that the spring split roster window has officially closed, and these ones came as a big surprise. There was two teams in particular that decided that the benching of some of their all-star players was the right decision, and it kind of caught a lot of us off guard. In particular, we're going to be talking about two different rosters today. We're going to be talking about Team Vitality and Team BDS, which is ironic because Team BDS right now is still rumored. There hasn't been any official announcements just yet, but with the way that the domino effect happens, and a lot of it depending actually on Vatira, that is kind of the assumption. So with that said, let's kind of break these down step by step. We're actually going to start with that scenario. Originally, during this trade window, the big focus was about Team Queso, and one of the rumors was that two players in particular, whether it be Vatira or Seikoo, we're going to be joining BDS in replace of MaRc By 8. Again, all of this has been rumored. None of this has been confirmed by the rosters, the organizations, the players, any of that kind of stuff. It is all right now just a tentative, like we are waiting and seeing if it is going to be Seikoo or Vatira. Eventually, we did get on the timeline of Twitter, Vatira basically stating, hey, I'm not leaving from Wolf of Wall Street, and which we have seen repeated numerous times. I think Torment was one of the first ones to do it, but that has basically stopped the conversation around Vatira. But it does create the conversation of why would BDS, after their results, constant top 4 finishes, winning a major, why would a team this successful after one iffy result decide that, hey, time to change it? Something's wrong here. And the conclusion that a lot of people got to is along the lines of the fact that the decision of a full French squad. Right now, the team is 2/3 French, with MaRc By kind of being the outlier of that. And that is where a lot of the conversation has led, is the ability to communicate in your native tongue, which is something that isn't really talked about in Rocket League too much. The ability to converse and discuss and not have to like split second translate into a different language to be able to communicate with your teammates. And this also received a lot of flack back in the day when it was both Gregan and Scrubkiller that were removed for Vitality and brought in another player despite their results being a world championship win and a second place win. And a lot of people kind of were like, what the heck? Why would they do this kind of situation? Your team has had such good performances so far, and now you're going to give that up. And we saw pretty solid results. And it basically turned into this whole like French Revolution, these new 3-man rosters of only French speaking players because the region has so much depth as a whole. And it kind of was the new normal. And some teams have kind of fought against it, I would say, not like aggressively, but more so like, hey, you know what, we're going to stick it out because we know our team's good, but are starting to lean into that fact because there is a lot of talent, primarily like Vatira and Seikoo, who have both had killer starts to their careers. Super happy personally that Vatira has stayed with Team Queso, but that still leaves the opportunity of Endpoint, where Endpoint is possibly allowing the tryout of Seikoo there, probably not for free. I'm sure there's something involved with, you're going to try out our player, you're going to pay for that to happen, because they have to recoup some of that cost if he decides to go elsewhere. So it kind of brings us to now. It kind of brings us to the fact that despite all these rumors, which again haven't been confirmed, there's been no confirmation from either BDS or anybody else. It's just been discussion on the timeline and rumors. And again, credit to Shift. They obviously have a very good track record with a lot of this stuff. But again, there still has not been an official, hey, this is the thing that has happened. With or without confirmation, the conversation has been surrounded that there is potential that BDS is looking to make a change, and it is going to be a French player. That is where it has all stemmed from. With that, and alongside, that means that someone would have to either remove or find a different place, and it creates this domino effect. There was a lot of people kind of depending on the replacement of, hey, right now, BDS and Queso are your top two in Europe, and if Queso changes, that means a shifting of a bunch of people are going to go try to find that spot. Someone's going to have to replace this spot, and it creates that domino effect that we're talking about. So for BDS is still one of the most prolific teams. They're one of the most successful teams in Europe, considered still one of the top. So that position is very sought after, and French players are going to do that, which is the assumption now, and still, again, not confirmed. Doesn't have to be confirmed until day one, which will not happen until like the 6th, I think, of May. I'm pretty sure, I think, is the first day. We'll talk about more spring split stuff. Make sure you guys hit subscribe so you don't miss out on that breakdown. But I'm pretty sure the 6th of May is the first day for Europe. That's the first day we officially get to know if they decide to not announce anything, if Seikoo has decided to go with them or not. I'm recording this video at 5:50 p.m. on 4/17 on Easter. Technically, rosters don't lock until midnight tonight. So there's still a little bit of time before this stuff has to officially be solidified. And it can, quite frankly, come down to the wire to paste upon transfers and all that kind of stuff. So we have this evolution. BDS is still up in the air, but there's a lot of rumors saying that Seikoo is likely to be replacing MaRc By 8, and MaRc By 8 is then moving to the bench. And that in itself was a concern because there was conversations or rumors that MaRc By 8 was potentially going to be going over to another roster. But again, he is a sub. He is with BDS as a sub, not competing instead. Is that due to the similar situations we talked about with Turbo? Is it due to the buyout? Is it too expensive? Are organizations not willing to pay for that? What is the reasoning as to why it is not being fulfilled? Why is MaRc, arguably one of the better players in Europe, sitting and not playing? Why?
Why? Why? Why?
And we don't know. We honestly just do not know the specific reasonings. Whether we will find that out or not, I don't know. But if MaRc is, and again, still up in the air, still not confirmed, if MaRc By 8 is going to be sitting on the bench for all of spring, what does that do for his career? Does that open up opportunities? Is he able to come back at the same strength? What is that scenario? I do not know. So that is scenario number 1. MaRc By 8 rumored to be sitting on the bench for all of spring and replaced by Seikoo of Endpoint. Who knows if that ends up happening? Which is crazy because that also means that there is a spot open on Endpoint, which we'll talk about in tomorrow's video. Again, this isn't getting any easier, and I'll try to do a full breakdown sometime in the coming weeks. Over on Vitality, we do have confirmations, which is part 2 of this video, which luckily we have gotten confirmation. There was a lot of things about Vitality where a change needed to be made. If you guys have been watching this channel, you know that I've talked a lot about Vitality. What is the potential for the roster? Where things could possibly be going? What is the development there? And what are their options? The big options were K-Dop, if he decides he wants to still compete. Do they move him as a content creator? Do they keep him on as a full-time pro? Fairy Peak, who statistically had the worst performance out of everybody on there. And is Alpha going to decide if he wants to go and do something else or if they want to rebuild it with him? What is the decision that is being made? Vitality does give us that information. They do it in a series of a few tweets. The biggest rumor that was going on is that Redosin of Williams Resolve was going to be coming over to Vitality, and that was right on the money. So they say a new chapter begins. We are pleased to announce the arrival of the talented Redosin in our Rocket League squad. And then a subtweet of that saying it is with heavy heart that we announce the bench of our legend in Fairy Peak, which again is another benching that I'm like, what is going on? Are we actually seeing the shift of this old guard out, or is it due to buyouts or something else to where they couldn't make it happen in time? I don't know. And it blows my mind because Fairy Peak is still super talented. He's one of the best pros in Europe, in my opinion. He's always been super respectful anytime I've worked with him. I still think he's stupid talented as well. So to see players like MaRc By 8 and Fairy Peak sitting on the bench, I'm flabbergasted. I do not know how that is happening. I can only assume that behind the scenes it is due to the fact of buyouts or like certain things with restrictions not allowing it to go through just yet. So after that happens, we do luckily get more insight provided to Fairy Peak. He states, and again, this can always be lost in translation due to Google Translate. It's never perfect, but he says, so I'm going to pass sub this last split, but I don't intend to retire from the pro scene. I'm going to continue to stream the next few months and resume competition for next season. I haven't said my last word. So it does look like Fairy Peak will be competing in the future, but as of right now, he will be on a bench for Team Vitality, which again, Fairy Peak as your backup is pretty dang solid, which I assume we won't get to see, but we have a new starting lineup for Vitality. A new iteration of this team with K-Dop, Alpha 54, and Redosin, which I'm interested to see. This also then leaves a gap over on the Williams Resolve roster, and more of that domino effect begins. So, a lot of stuff to discuss, and this has kind of been all over the place because it's tough to kind of piece these things together, but I promise you in tomorrow's video, we will provide some more information about some of these roster changes. It's just difficult when they haven't been confirmed yet publicly, and it's tough to fill in those gaps. So right now we're left with kind of like a question mark. But I can tell you right now, 2 things you can do. Number 1, roster document. Come over to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Lawler. Type !RLCS rosters. It will put out a document that gets updated frequently. You may even see me on stream updating it live, because a lot of these things are going to be moving into place very quickly over the next few weeks. Also, if you guys want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the news. Day to day, there's going to be updates. I will be putting out videos all this week, getting you ready for spring. And a lot of that has to do with these rosters. We'll be making sure that we do an all-encompassing. These are all the transfers that happened from the spring transfer window. We'll do one for NA. We'll do one for EU, all that kind of stuff. So in particular, as a final recap for this video, Very Peak benched, bringing in Radossin for Vitality. MaRc By 8 benched. Potentially Seikoo of Endpoint coming over. Not official just yet. We'll have to wait and see. Pretty crazy stuff going on in Europe Rocket League. We'll have to see if these are the changes that they need to get back on top in spring for the spring major in London. It'll be pretty crazy stuff and a whole lot more to come. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.